The story began with the most ordinary school morning. The boy looked somewhere to the side with an indifferent and a little sad look. At the next desk, the girls chattered merrily about something. His sad look was aimed at one of them, but the girl did not pay attention at all and was completely absorbed in the conversation. Yeon-woo had been in love at first sight with her since the beginning of his high school semester, meeting her by chance in the school hallways. In the second year of study, they got into the same class, and he hoped to get close to her, but she was always surrounded by classmates, so there was no opportunity for conversation. In the end, the boy was still unable to approach Kang Hye-sol, even though it was already April. And yet, he was only happy to watch her from afar. From his thoughts, his harsh voice, which belonged to his friend. He noticed that Yeon-woo did not take his eyes off the girl, but he couldn't figure out why he liked her. He tried to deny everything. And yet, Jun-hyuk was able to hit the mark, noting that many people at school liked Hee-sul, and that was perfectly normal, because she was better at almost everything. His friend was greatly surprised by the fact that he still had never spoken to her, although April had been standing on the street for a long time. The young man fell into despair. It was pouring rain outside, and he did not grab the umbrella. The same classmate appeared behind him and gave him her umbrella with a faintly warm look. This embarrassed him so much that the words did not come out, although he tried to say something to her, but he squeezed out only one stingy word, which the girl did not even hear, because her friend called her. The classmate told the boy to go home too, because it was cold outside, and both of them left him behind. He could only stare in their wake without moving. The next morning, the friends again walked the already familiar road to school. Jun-hyuk found out that Yeon-woo had borrowed an umbrella, which surprised him quite a bit when it surfaced the name of the one who did it, but he noticed that he looked as if he hadn't slept all night, which was actually true. The boy could not sleep because he was very nervous, because he kept imagining how he would have to return the umbrella. Jun couldn't understand why his friend was so nervous about it. He didn't care about it. Moreover, there were going to be exams in the near future, so it was more important. He completely forgot about the exams, but they didn't seem to bother him, and he lightly replied to his friend that they could go to the library after classes to study a little. But there are only 10 days left. He continued to be criticized and urged to pull himself together, because there was supposed to be practice after the exams. Yeon-woo promised that he would surrender, but he was not believed, and his friend had an idea. He suggested that when he returned the borrowed item, he should ask Hye-sol to do the lessons together. After all, the girl could help him prepare for the exams. Jun-hyuk abruptly shoved an umbrella and a small treat into his friend's hands as a token of thanks for his classmate, and sent him to talk to her. But as always, she was not alone. When he saw her, his legs stopped obeying him and did not want to go at all. All this meager courage disappeared somewhere, and he was never able to take a step towards the meeting, but his friend reassured him. There was still a whole day ahead, but it passed quickly enough, and Yeon-woo never dared to approach her classmate to return the umbrella. His mood was very depressed. He felt helpless. Classes were already coming to an end. When Jun approached the desk, he hurried to apologize to him for his character. He just smiled at him and offered to try again. The young man did so. When there was almost no one left in the class, he gathered all his courage and approached Hye-sol to return the item and the treat. The heart was beating wildly. The words barely came out of his mouth and were very quiet, but he was still heard. He thanked for everything, and the girl wanted to treat him with yogurt. Their friends were watching them in the corridor. He almost shouted the last words with which he offered to go and study together, but he was refused almost immediately because she had already promised to leave with Na-ri. He was ready to give up, but still hoped. She was almost on the way out of the classroom when she suddenly stopped and asked the reason why the boy so wanted to go to study with her. But he lacked the words and strength to answer the truth. She slowly began to approach him. It seemed as if something unknown was pressing on him. Hye-sol could not understand why the young man wanted to study with her, because she thought that he was dating Jun. When the words flew out of her mouth, the second one almost choked on water after hearing this nonsense. Na-ri was even worried. Strange sounds coming from the corridor could be heard already in the classroom, and attention was drawn to them. She approached the boy and lightly put her hand on his shoulder. He couldn't take it anymore, and directly asked her why she thought about it. Because they were best friends, not a couple. When she heard his words and realized that he was a boy, not a girl, she hurried to take her hand away and apologize for her mistaken assumption. but the words have already caused an irreparable injury. He wanted to cry. Although he was often confused with a girl, it was very unpleasant to hear this from his inseparable love, because she had been studying together for a long time, and she had never noticed. Yeonwoo wanted to leave the class quickly, but his classmate stopped him and promised to talk to Na-ri, and if she agreed, then they could go to the library together to study. At the same moment, Na-ri and Nam-jun immediately entered the classroom and suggested that they go to the amusement park together and have a little rest. Even Hye-sol agreed. On the way home, the boys joked about the situation that happened in the classroom during a conversation with a classmate, when she thought that Yeonwoo was a girl. Laughter spread through the street. In the morning, the situation seemed to repeat itself. The boy again failed to get even a little sleep, turning his head over and over again. His friend told him to take a nap on the bus. The bus finally arrived at its destination. All the students got off the bus together, and the teacher said that they had only 4 hours for entertainment. Yeonwoo and his friends began to look at the map of the area. One of the boys from another class approached the group and tried to take Hye-sol with him, but she refused because she was already spending time with her friends. The boy did not miss an opportunity to make fun of Yeonwoo. He thought that the friends had a double date, but he was quick to deny it. It was because of this that he was not opposed to the two groups uniting and continuing the walk together. But the company captured only the girls, and the friends were left behind. Jun was worried about his friend because he was very uncomfortable about the whole thing, but he tried not to show it. They continued their walk, played various games, and rode rides. Young-jin tried to please the girl and did it without hiding his intentions, which actually did not hide from Yoon's gaze. A very friendly atmosphere developed at the dinner table, despite the small confrontations that had taken place before that. He brought lunch with him, and the rest were happy to enjoy something delicious. Everyone really liked the food prepared by him and asked how he managed to cook it so deliciously. Hearing the answer that it was his hobby, angry words were poured in the boy's direction, and he hurried to run away. He ran to the bathroom to think it over. The words of his classmates still hurt him, although he tried to attribute everything to his character. Going outside with a heavy heart, the purse caught my eye. He thought that a couple had lost the wallet, but when he approached them, they denied it and directed him to the search office. Yeonwoo wandered for an hour looking for the building. When he looked at his watch, he realized that he had spent too much time searching and that his companions must have finished their dinner. He wanted to call, but noticed that his mobile phone was missing. All the problems together fell on the poor man, and tears came to his eyes. The day that was supposed to be the best turned out to be the worst. Two unfamiliar boys approached him and called him. When half an hour passed, the classmates began to worry a lot because of such a long absence. Yeonwoo, Jun decided to call him, but he forgot the phone on the table. When he realized that he could not reach his friend, he decided to try to find him. Na-ri and Hye-sol also decided to help in the search. The friends began to think about where to start the search, but they did not come to anything. Hye-sol suggested that she go to the administration and submit an ad. The guy ran to the administration to make an announcement. Meanwhile, the boys who approached Yeonwoo began to ask if he was okay. He turned away, trying to hide his tears. The stranger asked for a phone number, thinking it was a girl. He tried to escape from this situation, but the strangers did not want to let him pass. His attempts to explain that he was not a girl were almost useless, because his voice was too quiet. He came to help in a very timely manner. Jun took a friend with him. One of the strangers slowly backed away, with an inexplicable look at the students. The friends quickly left the place. On the way back, Yeonwoo began to be reprimanded for such imprudence, but in the end, his nerves gave way and tears were shed. He also admitted that he lost his phone, but it was returned to him immediately. The young man said that Hye-sol was waiting for them, so it would not be a good idea to go to her with a tearful face. So he quickly put himself in order, and with a determined face, was ready to return. When they returned, Na-ri even attacked him. Everyone was very worried about him and were glad when everything was okay. He explained the reason why he was late and apologized for it in front of everyone. None of them held grudges. All were glad that he was found alive and well. The girl gave him a toy rabbit and promised that they would definitely return to this amusement park. Yeonwoo was very pleased to hear these kind words. And even if they didn't come back here again, he knew for sure that they came as classmates, but leave as true friends. He will not forget this day. The next day, flyers were distributed to everyone in the class so that everyone could sign up for the sport day discipline in which they would like to participate. Yan Wu couldn't decide where to enroll. In a few hours, all the results were posted on the board, where it was indicated that he would have to run a short race relay with Nari. But the girl could not go, because she had choir lessons. She came closer and looked at the list of students to find out if it was possible to switch with someone. Only Hia Sol came to mind, but she had already signed up for a larger number of disciplines. June took advantage of this opportunity and offered to change the disciplines a little, because with such a schedule, it would be very difficult for the girl. So they ended up switching places with Nari. But when Yan Wu realized that he would now be on the same team as Hia Sol, he panicked a lot. His friend could not understand what was the matter, because he thought that he had done everything well. There was nothing to do. Everything had already been agreed. So the whole class went to training today, and the real competition was to begin tomorrow. It seemed to the boy that he would soon feel sick. He hasn't had the opportunity to participate in the race yet, so Hia Sol decided to teach him a little. She pulled him closer to her and told him to take her shoulder, but his hand froze. The girl did not have time to notice this and began to count the seconds until the execution, but his body seemed to be completely numb, and he almost fell. At the last moment, he was caught. Her face was too close. His face instantly turned bright red, and he tried to pull away from her, but the training handcuffs on both legs still bound them, and the girl was dragged to the ground with him. The rest of the students quickly ran up to the couple, asking if everything was okay with them. Hia Sol raised a slightly torn palm. Yan Wu was also injured, so they both went to the medical center. In the office, they were given the necessary assistance and asked to write down their names. The palm still hurt a little, and the pen fell out of his hands. A classmate wrote her names for him. He was very uncomfortable because she was injured because of his mistake. He was ready to say that he wanted to give up the competition because he thought that she didn't really want to be with him either. She reassured him because it was the first time for him. She was also not too familiar with this discipline last year. Moreover, they still had a whole week for training. Hia Sol invited him to dinner, and he agreed without a word. Walking down the corridor, his conscience tormented him. He just looked at her trail, realizing that if he had the opportunity to become better, he would take advantage of it. So he decided to ask his friend for help. The boy asked him to train him. It was a rather strange request, as June knew that his friend had never been interested in sports. After a hard day at school, the boys still went to training. Although it was late evening outside, it was quite hot, but Yan Wu was still a little chilly, so he was forced to move more. However, even jogging was difficult for him, and he was very tired in 5 minutes. The thought that even the children were better than him did not leave him, and Jun supported him as much as he could. The young man was just screwing himself up in vain, because Hia Sol wanted him to train more, but she did not want to leave the place to be with him in a pair. This gave him strength, and the boys ran a few more laps. The next morning, his legs hurt like hell, but that didn't stop him from continuing his training with Hia Sol, even despite the unpleasant comments from other classmates. The results of training were visible. It was time for the festival, which was supposed to come the next day, but the young man's health could not be better. The leg was very painful and swollen. It seemed to him that he only slightly pulled it, and then it would get better. But in the morning, the injured area swelled even more, so even walking was very painful. With a serious injury, he barely made it to school. At the desks, classmates chattered merrily, discussing the upcoming sports festival. Yan Wu understood that he needed to inform the girl. Today was the last day of training before the festival. He never managed to report his injury, so the girl didn't know anything, but she guessed that something was wrong. He was determined to win the competition for her, but he was never able to run the training. The pain made itself felt, and it forced him to stop training. Hia Sol finally saw the reason. The medical center provided all the help they could, but the young man still had to visit the hospital, because the injury turned out to be more severe. Now he could not burden himself for 2 weeks. The girl was somewhat offended that he kept quiet about his injury and did not tell her anything. She thought he was uncomfortable with her, but he wasn't. He just wanted to be more helpful. He felt sorry for his self-confidence. If it weren't for this, Hia Sol could have found another partner better than him. At that moment, Jun ran to the medical center and ran up with a worried look on his face. Yan Wu asked him to take part in the race for him, as he now needed to walk carefully, let alone run. The girl did not show any signs and indifferently agreed. Leaving the school, there was a heavy weight on my heart. He quickly glanced at the students' training and immediately remembered himself and his friends. Everyone believed in him, and most importantly, Hai Sol believed in him. The guy just wanted to do his best because he tried his best, but the confidence that he had let everyone down put a lot of pressure on him. Tears flowed down his face in an unstoppable stream. For the second year in a row, he received the second class. Jun and Hye Sol completed the race in a flash. The young man was very happy and did not hold back his happiness. Yan Wu was happy for his friends. Wu suddenly cut in on them with his scathing remarks about the appearance of his high school rivals' uniforms. But there was no more time for conversation because other relay races were about to start soon. While the rest went to participate in the remaining races, Jin Wu walked up to Yan Wu and sat down next to him. He asked why he did not take part in the race. Hearing that he was injured, he began to abuse again. A classmate looked at the teams preparing for the competition and remarked that Jun must like Hai Sol. It almost shocked him. He did not understand where he got such an assumption. This was evident in the fact that they began to spend more time together, although this could not be seen immediately. He could see it because he liked the girl too. He also looked at the crowd of students and saw his friends among them. Now he also saw that his friend treated her with great attention. My heart became restless. It was not hidden from his view that his friend was quite popular among the other students, just like Jean. But he never had to deal with them. Feelings of sadness weighed on him even more. Hye Sol imperceptibly approached him. She was worried about his injury, so she hurried to ask how he was. It seemed to him that she was angry with him. He frantically searched for words to apologize to her and began muttering something under his breath. She did not expect an apology from him and did not mean it at all, but Nari interrupted their conversation. But she just wanted to take a few photos before her friend disappeared somewhere again. The friends took a few selfies, and then the girl offered to take a joint photo for Yan Wu with Hye Sol. When they were alone for a moment, she leaned closer to him and finished her conversation in a whisper. She wasn't mad at him, just worried. This closeness sent goosebumps. Everything finally fell into place for him, and he saw her from the other side. The side where the eternally cold Hye Sol finally smiled at him. He realized that she was a very kind person. The guy with new strength behind his zeal wished her luck. The participants were preparing for a new race. The whole crowd of schoolchildren supported the girl and loudly shouted her name. In a moment, she crossed the finish line, and all the students ran up to her to congratulate her on the victory. Yan Wu remained standing still and did not dare to come closer. His thoughts were filled with her. The next day, the boys rested at their desks. Jun's muscles hurt terribly after all the competitions in which he participated. Nari approached them and asked the boy for his phone number. She added all four in a joint chat to send everyone yesterday's photos from the sports festival. Yan Wu suddenly noticed that Hye Sol was also in this chat, so now he had her number. Looking through all the photos, he noticed one that showed Jun and Hye Sol. This saddened him somewhat, and Jin Woo's words from yesterday hit him with new force. He hadn't noticed before that his friend showed interest in someone. Maybe he was hiding something on purpose. Thoughts about it filled his head, and he did not even notice how he was called. After school, the boys went for a walk, where they began to discuss the karaoke party to which they were invited. However, all the words seemed to fly right past Yan Wu, which alarmed his friend a bit. At the party, everyone had fun and sang songs. One of the songs was very similar to a situation involving a friend of his and a girl he liked. Bad thoughts crept into his head again. He left the room to clear his head. He couldn't stop thinking about it. The young man did not know what really happened between them, but he sincerely hoped that he would be able to remain friends with her. Jun noticed that his friend was missing, so he immediately followed him. He was still unsettled by Yang Wu's strange condition in recent days. He was quiet and hardly spoke, so they took him outside to find out everything. In the end, he had to admit that he was worried about the relationship between his friends. And if everything was like that, then he would like to remain friends with him. But his friend was very surprised by such an assumption. Hye Sol was beautiful, but not his type. He liked Nari more. Just when these words flew out of his mouth, a girl came from around the corner, hearing her name. Jun tried to justify himself. The guy quickly left the place red as a tomato after hearing his confession. The girl stayed with Yan Wu and he asked her how much she managed to hear. She admitted that everyone already knew about his liking for her classmate because everything was written on his face. But he shouldn't have worried about it. It was quite natural. In a moment, he realized that if everyone already knew about his sympathy for Hyasol, then whether she knew about it herself was unknown. Nari also thought for a moment, but she was sure that it was. At school, time didn't stand still either, and soon everyone had to give grades. June was sure that his mother would be very angry with him because he did not make friends with mathematics. Also, there were to be midterm exams in the near future, but none of the boys had started preparing for them yet. Yan Wu suggested going to the library after class. The exams were still a month away, so his friend wasn't too worried about it. Nari suddenly appeared behind them after hearing their conversation and wanted to go with them. They were supposed to meet after classes. The company decided to learn in a cafe because neither school nor library could do this. There were always a lot of school children there, which made it very difficult to prepare. Moreover, as soon as they noticed Hyasol in one of the offices, they immediately started harassing and making even more noise. Jun couldn't understand why the girls had invited them to their company. She only replied that they needed someone who could drive away the uninvited guests. However, they couldn't understand why they were being called, since they could have invited Jinwoo. Yeon Woo was glad that they were reunited with their company. His eyes kept looking at the girl. Thoughts flew through his mind, in which he was glad to understand that Hyasol did not feel uncomfortable next to him. Nari noticed that he was looking at her for too long, so she informed him about it via SMS. When the boy read what was written, he quickly looked away and blushed deeply and almost overturned the table. The next day, Hyasol was a little late, and her friend asked why. But nothing terrible happened. Just today, it was her turn to follow the black entrance. Nari bought a new pencil case. Today the boy came a little sleepy. He decided to go to the toilet to wash his face. Upon entering, he met Jin Woo and told him that he was wrong about his friend's relationship. He only smiled slyly in response and thanked for the information. Yeon Woo was sure that if June had something to do with Hyasol, he would have said it. Entering the booth, he found a lost pencil case. When he returned to the classroom, Nari noticed that his demeanor had changed. The boy tried to avoid her and looked away every time, which greatly surprised and even infuriated her. After the classes, she decided to take the situation into her own hands because she saw that something was wrong with him and wanted to find out what it was. The girl invited him to go to the store, and he agreed. She saw that her friend was frowning and acting very quietly. He seemed to want to say something, but he couldn't. The guy asked her to talk alone, and they went out into the yard, where he showed her her pencil case. Nari looked at her found thing with undisguised anger. After being silent for just a minute, she asked him to throw away the pencil case and pretend that he didn't see anything, especially not to talk to Hyasol. Even after the conversation, he could not throw away the pencil case. So I kept it with me. But it remained a mystery to him why it was not possible to tell about it and how this thing ended up in the boy's toilet. While he was walking around the garbage cans, Jun saw him. In the end, he had to tell everything to his friend. Together with Nari, they went to a cafe where they started asking her about it. Yeon Woo was very worried about this because he thought that the girl was being bullied. She gave up and promised to tell them everything, but made them promise not to tell Hyasol anything about it. It started last year. Things kept disappearing from her, and eventually she began to guess who it could be. She was disliked a lot because she was the only one Hyasol was friends with. She began to list in her mind the people who could harm her, but she could not say the exact number. Moreover, they could have acted together, but she had no evidence. That's why she didn't want to blow the elephant out of the blue, and even more so to tell her friend about it, because she already had enough trouble. She didn't want to create more problems. I wanted to have a fun weekend. The three of them visited the Room of Horrors, which greatly impressed Jun and even scared him. The girl laughed sweetly at him, but it was already evening and she needed to go home. She left, leaving them behind with unhappy thoughts. The boys were still worried about this situation. Besides, Yeon Woo noticed that Na-ri, who is always carefree, was worried today, but they could not interfere because they had already built a big wall between them. Further actions could have caused even more damage. In addition, they made a promise, but the soul was still restless. All the following days, the boys watched her carefully. Maybe it was imperceptible to others, but Yan-woo could definitely name all the envious people the girl mentioned. Even if they rummaged through her things, they would never molest her directly. He had heard their dirty talk about her behind her back, but a whole week had passed, and they hadn't discovered anything. During one of the classes, June asked him in a whisper if he had any ideas as to who it might be. Someone who was on duty with him that day. He thought about it and thought of Jin-woo, but immediately dismissed the thought. The teacher came to the office and asked to get the equipment that everyone received in the last lesson, but he forgot his and had to return to the classroom. My head was full of porridge. He didn't understand why it was necessary to pick up a girl like that and throw out a pencil case in the men's toilet when there were garbage cans on the street. She would have problems if the pencil case found someone else. Approaching his class, the boy saw a stranger and was sure that he was not his classmate. He was almost noticed, and at the last moment, he managed to hide behind the wall. Yan-woo continued to follow the stranger, and Jin-woo approached him quietly, and so quickly that he was startled when he heard his voice next to him. An was a stranger, Min-sun. During the break, Nari looked into her backpack, but noticed that one thing had disappeared, but she didn't want to show it off. The young man drew attention to this and guessed that something had been stolen from her again. He wanted to inform about his guesses, but stopped abruptly because he was afraid that the girl might get angry because of it. They promised her that they would not interfere in this matter. He had one idea, and he hastened to implement it. In Jin-woo's class, one of the girls found a pink purse on the floor and asked why it was in the boy's hands. During the break, he reached Min-sun and confessed that he had seen him in the neighboring classroom and asked what he was doing there. The boy did not want to confess and pretended not to understand what was being said. He noticed a strange thing in his classmate's pocket and quickly took it out and began to examine it. Min-sun tried to get it back, but to no avail. Jean opened his wallet and pads spilled out. Everyone around began to pay attention to the strange fight. One of the girls picked up the wallet and started asking the Zabiek where they got it from. Various gossip quickly ran around the class, which annoyed the thief. He started making a lot of noise and yelling at one of his classmates. In the end, Jin-woo intervened in this altercation, and the thief quickly left the classroom in a fit of rage. Min-sun's behavior surprised and angered his classmates. They decided to report everything to the teacher. Hye-sol seemed to feel something bad behind her and looked back. While walking down the corridor, Yeon-woo's mind kept on thinking about the strange schoolboy from another class. He wanted to talk to him alone. Just at that moment, Min-sun was walking towards him. He followed him and followed. The schoolboy was very angry because he was caught in the act when he suddenly heard a quiet voice behind him. This wild look scared the boy. The young man thought that it was Yeon-woo bad-mouthing Jin-woo about him. Everything was completely wrong, and he tried to justify himself, but it was difficult to form even 2 words out of fear. Offensive and evil words poured down on him. He was tightly pressed against the wall, preventing him from escaping. The scoundrel's hand rose to strike, but it didn't happen. He closed his eyes tightly in preparation for the pain, but nothing happened. At this very moment, Min-sun's hand was tightly squeezed. He turned his head and saw Hye-sol in front of him. He pulled his hand out of the girl's tight grip. Realizing that he was now pinned down, the boy quickly began to retreat and eventually disappeared behind the trees. She looked in his direction, but did not pursue. The girl approached her friend and wanted to help him up. He did not take his hand, assuring that everything was fine, but his legs could not hold him, and he fell into her arms. After understanding the situation, he quickly left. She saw that the young man fell a little on his leg and asked if everything was all right with him, because she was worried that he might hurt his leg again. When he refused, inquiries began immediately. Hye-sol handed Yeon-woo over to June and called Nari to talk. She herself saw that something was wrong with her friend. They said goodbye to the boys and left the classroom. She tried to find out the truth from her classmate, but she skillfully hid everything, leaning towards the fact that she had problems in the family, so they could not help her in any way. There was silence around. Min-sun's classmates eventually reported him to the teacher, and he tried to justify himself, but to no avail. All the evidence was against him. But this did not reassure the teacher. He defended the thief and made the girls apologize to him. With a malicious smile, he realized that he had managed to deceive everyone and promised to deal with that student. The next day, Hye-sol and Nari didn't say a word to each other. When he returned from dinner, the girl kidnapped him in order to find out the whole truth from him. But despite everything, he could not say. With a calm expression, she let him go, because she understood that he would not say another word. He began to worry that the girl was angry with him. In a cold tone, she said that it was time to go back. He understood that she was just worried about her friend, but he could not help. In a moment, the news spread in the classroom. A student in the parallel class, Jin Woo, was interested in the Committee on Violence, and there was to be a hearing. After classes, the boys, as usual, spent some time together. Yan Woo told him about the unpleasant situation that happened to him that day. Jun was a little angry that he hadn't been told anything, but he did not have time to inform in time because his friend was busy. The boy admitted this, but took his friend's word to report this immediately next time, because he was lucky that Hyasol found him. After thinking about the situation a little, he finally decided to take matters into his own hands. The first thing to do was to talk to Minsun, which he had to do the next day. If nothing works, then inform Nari. That's how they agreed yesterday. The next day at school, he tried to find his friend, but he was nowhere to be found. His girlfriend joined him, and together they found him in the corridor. When they inquired, they learned that the Committee on Violence had not yet provided an answer. Jun looked rather alarmed and wanted to bring up another topic, but didn't have time to say a word. The culprit of all this action came out from the office next to them to meet them. His cheek was covered by a small bandage, behind which a bruise was barely visible. The guy turned around and quickly left the place. Seeing this, the girl thought that the boys had a fight, but Jun was quick to deny it. In the end, the boys admitted to her that after their conversation, they tried to find the criminal and talk to him. Yan Woo didn't manage to do it properly. Moreover, he almost got into trouble himself. So today, Jun was supposed to have a conversation, but he didn't get anything done either, and he just exhaled heavily. They assured that they did not tell anything to Hyasol as promised. Inconspicuously for everyone, it was she who approached, but she did not want to eavesdrop. Everyone suddenly fell silent, and Nari quickly ran away from the place. A friend followed the girl and told the boys to visit the medical center. When she disappeared upstairs, Jun sat down on the stairs with a heavy heart. Yesterday, he wanted to talk about the fight. The friend began to calm him down because he thought that all this was for the sake of Nari. However, he was not at all sure whether it was for her sake that he started the fight, but he did not tell her anything about it. The guy started talking about yesterday's situation. He was walking past the school when he heard a strong smell of smoke. It immediately occurred to him that they were high school students. Voices were heard in a moment. The smokers discussed the thing stolen from the girl and even wanted to joke about it even more. Moreover, they started discussing Nari and calling her names, saying various untrue things. All this time, Jun listened to them, and when he heard that the girl was called a whore, he couldn't take it anymore. He approached the boys. The next moment, Minsun was lying on the ground with a broken nose. At that moment, he seemed to be taken into a trance. He did not understand what was happening. When I came to, it was too late. Even for the sake of the girl, he had to restrain himself. The boy understood that he should have restrained himself. Yan Woo listened to the whole story in silence. When he finished, he lightly placed his hand on his friend's shoulder. He called him, and together they went to the first aid station, and he did not object. Nari walked quickly down the corridor. She scolded herself for being inattentive and not noticing the obvious hints. Having caught up with Minsun, the girl invited him for a conversation. She did not see the point in turning to the committee because it would not change anything. She didn't know the reason why Jun beat him, but if he went to the committee, his affairs would come out as well. Excuses flew from his lips, but he himself did not notice how he began to say something that he could not really know. She began to put more and more pressure on him, but she still did not understand what all these actions were for. Minsun continued his line and assured that he just found the wallet. Nari believed that the boy was hurting her as revenge for her rejection of him last year. He continued to throw insulting words at her, accusing her of playing with other people's feelings. In the past with him, and now with Jinwoo. However, the girl never played. She could see very clearly that he simply hated women. This made the guy very angry, and he barely restrained himself from hitting her. He was determined to go to the committee. The girl had no such evidence, but the guy was very wrong. Hyasol's voice was heard behind him. All this time she heard their conversation. He understood that he had problems, because the words of the class president carried a lot of weight. Now the problems came out one after another. The committee did not really want to deal with his case, but wanted to achieve at least some punishment, but June in turn could tell that he smoked. He didn't want to run away with his tail pinched, so he pretended as much as possible to do the girls a favor. But Hyasol didn't like this behavior, and she gave him a warning. In a moment, he disappeared. Until that moment, the girls had not communicated, because they avoided each other, so they were glad when the problem was solved. Nari thanked her for the help, but she wondered why they didn't tell her everything right away. Even Yeon-woo and June knew about her situation, but not her friend. She continued to ask the girl the reason why, and kept silent and hid everything. She just apologized for it. But in reality, the reason for her silence was her desire to protect Hyasol. She remembered the first time she met her. Then there were a lot of bad rumors about her, which were hard not to believe. However, despite all the rumors, she did not seem to know how to talk about it. That day, she was put on duty with the new girl. This worried the girl a little. The girls cleaned the classroom in silence. Nari carefully examined the newcomer. Even up close, she seemed very beautiful, but still frightening, probably because she always had the same facial expression. Not being able to stand such a pause, Hyasol turned to her classmate and asked if she wanted to tell her something. Nari panicked a bit, but eventually asked her about her job at a modeling agency. The girl immediately swept away these rumors about her. She did not like to be in the center of attention, so she did not work as a model. But it was difficult for her to avoid attention in general. During the whole next week, the girls worked together, so they quickly became friends. All the rumors that were spread about her turned out to be false. Hyasol was quiet and sensitive. However, all they did was create new gossip about her, and the lack of a reason only added fuel to the fire. She was avoided only because of communication with John Sobin. Na-ri didn't like it. She introduced her to the rest of her classmates, and bad company faded into the background. Hyasol didn't even know that the reason she was being treated badly was because of that girl. Some time passed and she became popular. Everyone wanted to make friends with her. One day, she was invited to go for a walk, but she refused because she had already promised to spend time with Nari. Due to their friendship, more attention was also paid to her. She seemed to brag about it a lot, but Jan Sobin didn't stop teasing her along with her friends. But she thought that everything was her fault. At first, she did not pay much attention to the hatred Sobin to her, even ignored the rumors behind her back. There were times when even others could say bad things about her, but she didn't say anything. But then things started disappearing from her. It all started with a bracelet that she bought while walking with a friend. A classmate offered to search in one of the offices, but the girl did not bother with it. Small, insignificant things began to disappear more and more often. This happened, and she thought she was simply forgetful. So she ignored it until one day she found her pencil case in the trash. In the 8th grade, he and Hyasol were separated into different classes, but the disappearances did not stop. Then she realized that everything was not so simple. But who could go so far and resort to this? I did not know. Sobin came to mind because she hated Nari. And now, when her friend was not around and she could go for a walk, but she could not tell the teacher because there was no evidence and it was possible to harm her. Hyasol couldn't tell either. If it wasn't for Yugyeon, it would be much more difficult to go through it, but always gave her strength and support to move on, so she decided to just ignore it all. But one day her wallet went missing, and that's when she realized the thieves had crossed the line. After the discussion, the girls still turned to the teacher in the hope that after this, all this horror would end. In one of the lessons, the teacher asked the students to honestly confess what they had done, but none of them admitted their guilt. After that, we had to go to extreme measures and inspect everyone's bag. All eyes were fixed on her. Her classmates didn't like it at all, but she didn't want it to come to that either. After the inspection, it was scary to enter the classroom, knowing that she could be grabbed. Having overcome herself, she nevertheless entered the classroom. And at that moment, all the things from her backpack ended up on the ground. Her wallet was also among the items. Yang Subin gave her a sinister look while holding her bag. The rest began to accuse the girl of inattention, but Nari continued to assure that the wallet was nowhere to be found. With despair in her voice, she turned to Union, because they checked together. But she disappeared. And although she confirmed this, she noted that Nari had checked most of it herself, but she didn't really see anything. The girl realized that she was left alone. and began to apologize. Later, she went to the teacher to report that the wallet had been found. On the way to the office, she was stopped by the class president. She saw with her own eyes how Yugyeon put her wallet in her backpack. After what she heard, she barely crawled to the teacher's office, but she still couldn't believe it, because her classmate was also her good friend. She did not understand why she had to act like that. She wandered for a couple more minutes until she heard a familiar voice. Hiding behind the wall, she began to listen. The voices belonged to her friends. They actively discussed the situation with the stolen wallet. Yugyeon gossiped about her. Every word that flew out of her mouth was a complete lie, but she seemed to be believed. The girl called her friend clumsy, and Yan Sobin even tried to justify it. But suddenly, the conversation started about her relationship with Hye Sol, and that she really felt sorry for her, and her friend was a burden to her. Lies spread at the speed of light. Nari just listened quietly. The traitor began to feel sorry for her and pretended that she was being framed. She cried quietly, and the girls began to comfort her. Now, all the said words seemed to them to be true. Ri had neither the strength nor the courage to come out to defend herself. All this time she considered them her close friends, but now it was difficult to call them friends. After that check of backpacks, the girl was expelled from the circle of friends, and she became an outcast in the class. Due to the dynamics in the classroom, her self-esteem dropped, which is why she tried to avoid Hye Seol, especially at school. But fate still played a bad joke, and they finally met after classes. Thanks to Nari's efforts, they didn't even meet at the lecture. However, the girl only replied that she was busy with courses. It's not that she didn't want to tell her friend about her problems, but she was afraid to do it, because she was worried that she might get tired of listening to her, just as Yugyeon got tired of it. Moreover, she couldn't say that the girls Hye Sol was friends with were bullying her. She had no one left but her, so she did not want to lose her friend. Her story was listened to attentively, without interrupting. When she finished, a smile shone on her face, but her soul was heavy. Finally, she was able to tell everything. But her friend was somewhat upset by this. Hye Sol scolded herself for being careless, but Nari tried to calm her down, because she couldn't possibly know about this situation. No one told her, and she herself was silent. Moreover, they studied separately. She was asked if no one else had harmed her. After thinking about it, she calmly answered that the recent criminal had been caught, and she was already used to conversations, so there was no need to worry. But most of all, she was worried that her friend was angry with her. However, she was not angry, but was very surprised that she hid everything so skillfully. It hurt her. She took Nari's word that she would not hide anything from her anymore, and she agreed. The girl was happy that she had such a friend, and thanked her for everything she did for her. The whole situation of the past days and all the years together piled up on her. The bright smile disappeared in an instant. Tears appeared in her eyes instead. Without restraining her emotions, she quietly cried on her friend's shoulder. Friends were together again. There seemed to be no recent problems. June was saved from the committee by force, replacing the punishment with community service for a short period. For a moment, the boy's conscience gnawed, and he apologized for everything to Nari, because she protected him. But because of this, Minsun also escaped punishment. She didn't care about it. The main thing is that everyone is together. The girl assured that even an appeal to the teacher would be in vain, because the thief could lie about everything. In addition, she was glad that she was stuffed in the face. Chartoma offered him to become her bodyguard. After the classes, they went to the cafe to celebrate the successful completion of all these events. When the evening came, the friends slowly began to leave. June wanted to take Nari home. Yeonwoo and Hye Sol were left alone. He began to get a little nervous, because he didn't know how best to say goodbye to her. She broke the silence by thanking him for protecting her friend. He did not understand why he deserved such gratitude, because in that situation, he was the one who was saved in time. However, she saw a completely different situation, the one in which the boy stood up for the girl. He was very pleased to hear these words, and the touch of her hand seemed unreal. After saying goodbye, the girl went on her way, and he stood for some time looking at her trail. The next day, in physical education, he could not gather his thoughts. Yesterday's image of Hye Sol smiling at him was in his head. He did not pay attention to the ball, and it hit him in the head. The blow was quite strong, and the boy's nose bled. June quickly took him to the medical center where he was given ice. He was scolded a little for his absent-mindedness, but he could not stop thinking about it. Walking along the corridor, they saw a friend and decided to invite her to dinner. They followed her and accidentally witnessed a love confession, although they did not want to eavesdrop. Ri jumped up to them and invited Hyasol to dinner. Leaving the boys, she asked them to forget what they had just seen. They looked after her, forgetting to take her to dinner. The young man thought about this situation because until that moment, he did not understand how much everyone liked the girl. He suddenly remembered the same words about his confession that she had once said to him. He thought that he had been denied his feelings for her as well as that girl just now. It became somewhat painful to the heart. These thoughts did not leave him. And although Hyasol used to think that he was a girl, the boy did not know if the situation would change for the other now. After all, he believed that she saw only his weak side. His classmates pulled him out of his thoughts. There was going to be a talent show soon, and they asked him for help, so they asked if he would be willing to participate. Without thinking, I wanted to give up. June came to his defense. Because he knew that his friend did not like such a thing in general, he was very shy and sarcastic. The classmates made a little joke about it. They asked Yeon-woo to think about it. He knew he should become more confident. His friend did not immediately understand what he meant, but he guessed that it referred to the dinner situation, so he suggested that he confess to the girl. If he and Hyasol started dating, he would be overwhelmed with unprecedented happiness. But this will not happen. For her, he was just a friend. There was no point in confessing. He already knew the answer. The young man assured that he would not get the girl's recognition with shame and sarcastic actions. He understood that his friend was right, but it was too difficult for him. The fear of rejection prevailed. One idea appeared before him. To ask which boys Hyasol preferred, he decided to ask Na-ri. But the girl, unfortunately, could not answer his question. She did not know either, but she wanted to help her friend, so she thought about what she could be like. They both mentioned that Hyasol liked the quality of Na-ri's hair and always braided it. While they were talking, Yeon-woo noticed how Jin-woo approached his inseparable love. Without hiding his intentions, he asked her if she would like to meet him. He realized that he was late. She immediately refused without thinking. The rest of the girls around me had fun joking about it, because it was the third time. Hearing this, the boy was very surprised, because he did not expect that he would be refused. The suitor used a Korean saying towards the girl, where he assured that he will try to propose again and again until he gives up. They just looked at him coldly. The students around quietly laughed at the situation, but were sure that he was the best candidate for a mate for Hyasol. Yeon-woo heard this, but also saw that Jin-woo was rejected. However, he was not going to give up so quickly, and on the next attempt, he invited her to go to the cinema with him. But this time, he was also refused. Immediately after that, Yeon-woo realized that he had no chance. He looked sadly in the direction where the girl was standing, surrounded by her classmates and friends. She didn't even have to do anything to get such popularity. She seemed unattainable to him. In a few days, the whole class went to Jeju Island. It was only June outside, but it was too hot. Together they visited the Green Tea Museum to take a break from the heat. The boys looked over at the counter where Hyasol and Jin-woo were choosing something from the menu together. This made Yeon-woo very upset, and June noticed it. He offered to call the girl to the theme park. The guy refused to take her with him. His friend was very surprised by this, but he did not insist. They continued to walk the streets together. The friend was interested in why he was avoiding his friend. He decided not to confess his feelings to her, but to spend a little time alone and understand himself. Hearing this, Jun was surprised, because according to his confession, he was only joking, and that was not what he really wanted to say at the time. His eyes betrayed him all the time, and it was noticeable. He frowned a little. When he saw her in the company of friends, he could not do anything. It seemed that he liked her more than he himself would have liked. Yeon-woo went to bed quite early, and his friend didn't want to touch him again and let him be alone. The rest of the boys invited him to play truth or trick with the girls, and he agreed. Everyone got ready for the game, and the jar spun, pointing at Jun. He was asked questions to find out information about his first kiss, but missed, because he had not even met anyone. The next time was to be his. The jar was spinning, and in his head he begged for it to stop on Hyasol. This happened. There was silence in the room. Taking a deep breath, the boy finally blurted out a question. The next day, the boys went for a walk through the labyrinth and accidentally ran into their girlfriends. Nari offered to find a way out together. Jun refused and wanted to bet who would find the way out faster. However, Yeon-woo instantly turned to the other side and called his friend after him. The girls silently looked after them, wondering at the boy's interesting behavior. He was ashamed to hide, but he couldn't help it. After returning, he sat quietly in the room, putting his things together. His classmates approached him asking about the talent contest and what he decided, but he did not want to participate. The classmate stepped forward a little and almost tearfully asked him for a favor. They really needed a person to say only a few words and no more at the end of the competition. They really wanted to get the prize for the competition, and the boy eventually gave up. He was given things to wear. It was ordinary, unremarkable clothes, but girlish. Suddenly, I remembered the past. Jun was walking down the corridor to his room when he was suddenly stopped by his classmates, laughing softly. They invited him to their place so that he could look at his friend. Yeon-woo was sitting on the floor in the guise of a girl. A friend took him out of that hell of ridicule by lying that he needed to go to the medical center. The guy didn't realize it right away. Jun wanted to have a serious conversation with him. The young man was very angry with his friend and did not understand why he agreed to such a humiliating proposal, because he himself did not like it when he was considered a girl. It hit him hard. He was very hurt, although he knew that he was right. Pain and resentment instantly covered him, and he wanted to leave this place as soon as possible and finish this conversation. Jun chastised himself for his mistake. Yeon-woo walked without looking at the road until he came across a bench on the way. He wanted to be alone where no one would see his tears. He did not immediately realize that he came out in girl's clothes. With tears, cosmetics spread all over her face. The least she wanted to do now was to meet Hye-seol. But at that very moment, she was walking down the street and saw his tearful face. The girl slowly began to approach him. Without restraining his emotions, he turned around and ran away without knowing the way. I wanted to fall through the ground from shame and despair. His classmates were getting nervous because he was nowhere to be found, and the show was about to start. The classmate did not worry. There were still about 2 hours left before the competition. She approached her classmates asking why they were not in the hall yet. The girls quickly told about the situation that had just happened. They were looking for Yeon-woo, but he still hasn't returned from the medical center. She was surprised that he had to participate because his name was not mentioned in the lists. However, it was supposed to be a surprise. She told everyone to get ready for the performance, and she herself went to check the first aid station. The run seemed to go on forever, but eventually it stopped because there was nowhere else to run. Hye-seol already guessed where he could be, so she found him without any problems. The hands began to cover the face. He wanted to cover himself completely. He didn't want to be seen like this. However, she only worried about him and did not care about appearance. She came closer and wiped the makeup from his tears on his face. The boy wanted to resist, but tried in vain. He was pleased by her concern. She was told that she would find him at the medical center, but it was completely unclear why he was in the middle of the street on such an evening. The guy knew that he should have given up on the concert venture, but he couldn't. He was terribly ashamed that he had become such a burden to his friends. He hated that part of himself more than anything. Hye-seol didn't think about that. She threw her blouse over him. The girl only told him not to let himself get on his head and not to do what he didn't want to do. Her kindness was amazing to him. It was not possible to even say a word. He wanted to remain friends with her, but each time he failed and fell more and more in love. And it all started last year, when I saw her for the first time. Then it was love at first sight. It is difficult to say whether such love existed, and maybe he wasn't the only one who felt it. Hye-seol always glowed wherever she was, and that attracted others. So he could only watch from afar. Remembering everything, he now understood that he was no different from other supporters. Until one day, everything changed. Once, the whole class went to the forest, where they played a game. He tried his best to bring his team a win and earn at least a couple of points, but he failed. While looking for a treasure in the bushes, the boy came across a large spider. Out of fear, he fled deep into the forest. When he finally came to his senses, he realized that he had lost his way. Looking around, he did not find anyone, although the instructor forbade him to go far. It seemed to him that he would die here. In addition, they were warned that there were bears in this forest. Hearing the rustling of leaves, he thought it was an animal. He shouted as hard as he could, but Hyasol came out of the bushes. A beast would be better. She began to look around without saying a word. It seemed strange to him. In a moment, the girl wondered if he had seen any of his classmates. Yan-Woo was shocked that she was also lost. He began to think about how to find a way out for them, because they did not have phones with them. I remembered one of the lessons where they told how you could find south with the help of a clock and the sun. She had a watch, but she was not lucky with the sun. Clouds covered the whole sky, and there was no need to wait for the sun. It was time to end the game. They needed to return as soon as possible. She was worried that they might notice their disappearance and be exposed for it. It seemed strange to him that the girl was worried only about this, because there could be wild animals around. He was impressed by her calmness about the situation, but he himself suddenly realized that he was no longer afraid or worried. He still couldn't believe that he was next to Hyasol. She suddenly turned sharply to him. A huge spider appeared on his head, and she easily removed it and threw it into the bushes. Yan-Woo understood for himself that she was not at all what the rumors said. Spending time with her was fun. They continued to wander through the forest, looking for a way out. In the end, the voices of school children and adults were heard. They hid in the bushes, and she asked him not to tell anything about what happened. Nobody found out anything, but he got a lot from June. Everyone called her insensitive and scary. But the Hyasol he saw was not like that at all. She was not lost. When they got lost, he saw that side of her for the first time. And from that day, I wanted to get closer to her. So when they got into the same class, I was very happy about it, and their friendship became a dream. He couldn't even think about even talking to her. But meeting her, he didn't even imagine such a thing. I always asked myself this question: was I too self-conscious to think about it? Nevertheless, he was satisfied with the situation in which he was. He didn't want their relationship to change after this confession, but he wanted her to know that he really liked her. Yan-Woo didn't even realize how those words flew out of his mouth right in front of her. His face turned crimson. He wanted to run away. Hyasol stared at him in silence for several minutes. There was nowhere to run, and he was tired of doing it every time. In the end, he forced himself to say everything that had been on his mind until then, even though he understood that she already knew. He blurted out his confession. When the words ended, he lowered his head, not daring to look her in the eye. The girl agreed to meet him, although that was not what he had in mind. She only asked to keep it between them. The boy himself did not understand what had happened and how to explain it all. In a moment, she left him standing alone in the middle of the street. It seemed to him that he would not be able to take another step. When he came to, June was already running to meet him. Yan-Woo asked him to pinch him to make sure it was all real, and then told his friend that he was dating Hyasol. He also didn't immediately believe and guessed that it was all a dream. The young man asked him to be quieter, because all this was a secret. Nevertheless, it was time to go back and make him look sick. Jun spent almost the whole night in thought. Although he was happy to see his friend happy, he remembered that at the game, the girl said that she did not like anyone. Then my heart sank with anxiety. It's been 2 weeks since they started seeing each other after the trip. One day, the four of them went to a cafe to prepare for the exams, and then went their separate ways. Nothing changed. Nothing has changed at school either. The same simple communication as before. He was not sure that they became a couple at all, but he did not know how to do everything correctly because he had a girlfriend for the first time. The next day, after classes, the girls went to study at home, and the boys stayed at school. Jun studied hard, but Yan-Woo didn't care at all. He was still worried about the issue with the girl. A friend burned out when instead of studying, he paid more attention to searching the internet for relationship questions. For a moment, he felt very ashamed of it, but could not do anything about it. He didn't know what to do in a relationship because he could barely speak to her when they were just friends. The feeling as if they were moving away from each other in the relationship became stronger. June listened intently, and when he finished, he asked if they had been on a date. Yan-Woo thought about it, but didn't see the point. After all, they saw each other at school every day anyway. The friend took his word that he would ask the girl out on a date today. He had no choice but to agree. He was sitting in the room holding the phone, but he didn't have enough strength to write. In the end, he overpowered himself because he understood that their relationship would not change if he did not make the first move. There was nothing strange about asking the person you were dating out on a date. It had been 2 weeks since he had last messaged her. Finally, he did, and in a moment, the answer came to him. She was busy on Saturday, but had some time on Sunday. The guy invited her to the cinema, and she agreed. It took my breath away from happiness. The girl wished him good luck in the exams and good night. He quickly sat down behind his books to prepare for the exam. 3 days passed. The exams were finally over, and June felt an unprecedented ease, to say nothing of Yan-woo. He was barely alive, but not because of the exams, but because of seeing Hya-sol. The date finally arrived. He was very nervous, but he wrote everything down on a piece of paper. So in the end, he calmed down a little. A friend helped him a lot in this matter, and he was grateful for it. While he was rereading the paper, his girlfriend came. He really liked her appearance, but the very next moment, she lowered him to the ground because she decided to communicate as friends for the time being. But everything was a little easier. She was just worried that her classmates would not find out about them. Already on the way to the meeting, she met 3, so she asked about it. My heart almost skipped a beat. Finally, they reached the shopping center where the movie theater was located. Since he had already bought the tickets, she decided to go get popcorn for them. The guy wanted to make this date the best. While she was standing in line, people around her began to whisper and pay attention. For them, she seemed like a famous model. Yan-woo noticed that she stood out from the crowd. He began to be filled with pride that he was dating such an incredible girl. Even on the way to the cinema, they caught people's eyes. This happened to him for the first time. Suddenly, an unfamiliar young man sat down next to him and started talking to him, but he tried to ignore him. The stranger was quite pushy and took his ticket to see what movie was going on. All this was so that the boy would eventually pay attention to him, but the stranger did not understand that it was not a girl in front of him, but it did not matter, and he asked for a phone number in exchange for tickets. He had no words to say anything. Suddenly, someone snatched the tickets from the hands of a stranger. Hya-sol stood behind her, her gaze cold. She grabbed Yeon-woo's hand and pulled her along. He wanted to help her carry the popcorn, but she was fine. My heart felt a little sad. It seemed as if the only thing left for him was to forever be under her protection. Looking at her back, they entered the cinema hall and took their seats. The girl leaned over and quietly asked why he didn't answer the guy who molested him. The young man just shrugged his shoulders. He was bound to such. She recommended that next time he should say that he has a girlfriend. It impressed him. It pleased him to think that Hya-sol really thought of him as her boyfriend. The movie eventually ended, and they left the hall. Everyone around was discussing the movie, and he too was wondering what his girlfriend thought about him. Unlike him, she watched the film carefully. He couldn't say anything specific about the movie, because most of the time he just looked at her. He wanted to invite her to a cafe, but she wasn't hungry, so they decided to go play games. They approached the toy machine, and Hya-sol had already spent more than 1 coin trying to win, but the machine wouldn't give up. Yan-woo began to worry that she had already spent enough, but he did not dare to stop her when he saw the girl's focused gaze. He understood that she did not want to give up and wanted to win at all costs. And in the end, she managed to get 1 toy, which she gave to him. Then they went to a game in which physical force should be used. When she went out with her friends, they always played this game with bets. He also wanted to play it. He got ready to strike, but stepped back too hard and almost fell, but held on. He was carried a little forward again and almost fell on the apparatus itself, but the girl caught him in time, when he came to his senses. Then he realized that he was in her arms and immediately jumped back. When she got up, his gaze fell on her hand, and he saw that the watch was broken and the hand was injured. He panicked. He wanted to take her to the hospital, but she remained calm because the wound was not so terrible. The girl turned to people asking for directions to the pharmacy. They went outside, where they treated her wound. He was still helpless after this situation. He couldn't stop apologizing for it, but was rather amused by such a reaction on his part. Hya-sol kept on assuring her that everything was fine with her. The wound was not deep, just bleeding a little. They got up from the bench and went to find a cafe to eat together and looked at Maku. Sitting in silence was a little uncomfortable, but he didn't know where to start the conversation. In the end, I remembered how she enthusiastically played games in the shopping center. She used to often play with her friends. When he heard the name Jin-woo, he was a little sad. I remembered the words of classmates who thought that he was the perfect match for Hya-sol. He will never be equal to him. Time passed quickly, and it was already evening. Yeonwoo took out a piece of paper with the last unfulfilled item on it, but he didn't have time to complete it because the girl had one more thing to do. They parted at this point. The list that he made together with June was difficult to call fulfilled. She led almost the entire meeting, and he thought that he was only creating problems. Nevertheless, he was happy. Choosing words, he finally uttered a word of thanks. The girl remained silent for a while, and finally also said that she had fun. It amused him quite a bit. It was nice to hear these words. For the first time, a smile lit up his face. His happiness could not be expressed in words. The boy slowly began to retreat on the way home, and his body wanted to dance. He said goodbye until tomorrow at school. He suddenly woke up from a bad dream. He dreamed that Hye-sol still wanted to break up with him. He was scared and sad at the thought, but it was only a dream. There was hope for that. 2 weeks have passed since they last spoke. After their meeting, the exams were over, and everyone was excited about the upcoming vacation, because there were only 2 weeks left. All this time, Hye-sol was busy, and he didn't want to interfere. But the holidays finally came, so he wanted to see her more often, so he immediately wrote to her. But even then, she was busy. After that, they stopped talking. The girl did not write to him often, so he wanted to take the initiative, but after such an answer, he did not have the courage to write again. The situation was similar to the one where they didn't talk for 2 weeks after practice. He tried not to think too much about it. He suddenly thought that Hye-sol was with him simply out of pity. The boy was afraid of the day when she simply did not want to see him anymore. If they break up, their relationship will never be the same. Confessing her feelings was the biggest mistake. It seemed to him that being in a relationship, he would be able to get closer to her and get to know her better. During the summer vacation, he hoped to spend more and more time with her. He missed her. The day was warm and slightly windy. He discussed his relationship with Hye-sol and what bothered him about it. When June heard that the two had not seen each other for 2 weeks, he even became a little angry. He really didn't like such passivity on her part, because she could at least write to her boyfriend. His friend's taciturnity was also evident. It was quite disturbing. Finally, the friends reached the place where everyone else was already waiting for them. Although they were a little late, seeing Jin-woo among everyone was not to say that it was pleasant. Hye-sol was not among them. Yeonwoo was upset when he heard that his girlfriend would not be coming to them, wondering what she was doing now. Everyone around continued to discuss the upcoming holiday, Hye-sol's birthday. Na-ri wanted to take everyone and celebrate on the beach. There were supposed to be 7 people in total, which was strange because there were only supposed to be 6. An old friend of the birthday girl was supposed to join the celebration. Time passed slowly. 2 of the group already had to go to the cinema. Yeonwoo approached the girl and asked if she knew where his lover was. She answered in surprise that they had seen each other yesterday. The boys were frankly surprised, and Na-ri realized that she had conspired something too much. So she immediately said that it was difficult to meet Hye-sol on vacation because she was spending time with her close friend. Now everything fell into place, but he still felt a little helpless because he blamed himself for asking her about it. Nevertheless, he felt an unprecedented relief. They continued to walk through the streets and thought about what to give her for her birthday, when suddenly the boys saw her in the crowd and came up to say hello. But she was not alone. A strange-looking girl approached them and hugged Hye-sol's hand. For the first time, they met their classmate's childhood best friend, Ha-ran. She smiled at each other. The girls already had an appointment, so they said goodbye to the boys. Yeonwoo watched silently as his new acquaintance took away the love of his life. In a moment, the friends disappeared into the crowd. This very special day has come. All friends came to the beach to celebrate their friend's birthday. They rented a small house and went to change clothes. The weather was sunny. Everyone had fun playing on the water. The boys were riding on wheels, but Yeonwoo was a little afraid to climb on his because it threatened to topple over. Having overpowered himself, he finally climbed up, but immediately collapsed. Jun ran up to the rest, accusing them of being the cause of his friend's downfall. Classmates started having fun playing water games, while the young man tried to wipe his eyes from the salt water. The seawater stung his eyes painfully, and he could not open them in any way. He wandered around like a blind kitten until Ha-ran came up to him and helped him up. The girl dragged him to the restroom to wash his face and at the same time get drinks for his friends. As soon as he washed his face, he felt much better. Leaving the dressing room, he noticed the absence of an acquaintance. Looking around, he finally noticed her among the three boys. They tried to molest her, and it was not hidden from his gaze. The boy began to get nervous, thinking about what to do. He already wanted to call someone for help, but in a moment, he understood that she did not need protection. Her face was calm and cold. She held back the onslaught of strangers without any problems.